Welcome, folks. We're so glad you could join us this afternoon. I guess for some of you, it's still the morning. My name is Jack Jezreel. I am the founder of JustFaith Ministries. I now serve on staff as senior advisor. And I'm so glad you could join us for this time to talk about where JustFaith is and how we might be helpful to you going forward. I'd like to begin with a prayer. And the prayer I've selected this afternoon is just to be mindful that while we gather maybe with some degree of enthusiasm, but certainly with a lot of a sense of safety and well-being, there are places in this world, and especially I'm thinking of Ukraine, where life now is hard and difficult. And so I offer this prayer in remembrance of the people of Ukraine. Let us pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Christ of peace, the first words you spoke to your disciples after your resurrection were, "Peace be with you." With us and with all of creation groaning for peace, we implore your mercy and forgiveness as we listen to earth lamenting and people crying, made poor by humanity's acts of aggression. As your disciples of peace and nonviolence, may our first words be at this time of war in Ukraine, "Peace be with you." Peace be with you, people of Ukraine, whose suffering is our suffering, whose cries unite with our cries for peace. Peace be with you, leaders of countries whose use of force and aggression might be transformed into justice that is restorative. Peace be with you, protesters in the streets of Russia, whose courage puts you at risk for your lives. Inspire us to stand for nonviolence. Peace be with each one of us, that as we cry with our Ukrainian kin, we may be moved to proclaim, "No more war, war never again. Come, Christ of peace, be with us." Amen.
Amen.
Again, thank you all for being with us this afternoon or late morning, depending on where you are. My task, I'll get us started. My task is sort of to do the 30,000-foot view for those of you who are new to the work of JustFaith Ministries, or perhaps are returning after some time. Give you a little bit of a historical overview, and then pitch it on. So I'm going to try to take less than 10 minutes to do just that. Some of you know the story. I was working at a parish here in Louisville, Kentucky. And my general job description was Director of Social Concerns. And as I tried to do the prototypical things that a Minister of Social Concerns would do, gather people to get involved in some kind of active way in the work of social mission, or invite them into some kind of educational opportunity, I kept bumping into this phenomenon that only a handful of people, and typically it was the same handful of people, no matter what I offered, would show up for these events. And after organizing and trying a dozen different things, all with the same exact results, it dawned on me one day that the problem here was not that people were bad people, not that they were malicious, not that they had any kind of defect, but rather it was simply that they had had no opportunity to explore, study, and be formed by the tradition that we as Catholics call Catholic social teaching. There simply had been nothing in their parish that would prepare them for the kinds of opportunities that I was inviting them to. And so I'm mindful of my own experience, and let me just share that experience briefly with you. So like some of you, I have a degree in theology. I spent 7 years studying theology as an undergrad and then as a grad student at Notre Dame. And what I can tell you about those 7 years was the opportunity to study scripture, church history, dogma, and all the rest profoundly changed me. Having a class in Catholic social teaching while I was at Notre Dame profoundly changed me, and it gave me kind of eyes to see and antennae to sort of sense around in ways that I never would have had I not had those experiences. Right after I finished, just about within a year of finishing my MDiv degree, I ended up joining a Catholic worker community and spent the next 6 years working and living with men, women, and children who were homeless. And that experience profoundly changed me. And the way I talk about those things is that those 7 years of study in a classroom around a table in a kind of prototypical academic environment was in some ways like studying the gospel, from a position of comfort, no doubt about it. And then the 6 years that followed in the Catholic worker community, living and working on the street and seeing the world through the lens of those who saw it from the bottom, in some ways was like studying theology from the bottom up instead of the top down. And I would say that alternating experience of having this precious opportunity to study our tradition with some kind of academic rigor, and then later to be able to complement it with the lived experience of what I had studied in a classroom. Both of those experiences were so profoundly transformative. What I wanted to do in the parish setting was to provide some kind of opportunity that would mix those two things together, a rigorous academic option with the experience of actually what Pope Francis calls encuentro, right, and the encounter with our sisters and brothers who see life from the bottom. And when you mix those two things together, it's an extraordinary, powerful experience. I look at the Gospels, I see Jesus teaching, and then they hear the disciples go somewhere, they do something, and then they ask questions, typically stupid questions, and then he has an answer for them through the insight of the experience that they've just had together. And so the original Just Faith program was an attempt to put together a rigorous course of study with various versions of encuentro or encounter or experience of those, if you will, who experience life from the bottom, and put it together in the hope of a transformative effect. I had worked previously in a parish as the director of RCIA, and the language of the RCIA is very instructive. There's a point at which when the catechumens are to sort of be scrutinized, if you will, about whether they have begun to demonstrate in their own lives some kind of, and this is included, some kind of passion for our brothers and sisters who find themselves in harm's way. And I thought that's the transformative effect that I'm looking for here. I'm looking to, in some ways, give people an experience that actually changes them from the inside out. A story I like to tell was many years ago, I was at a conference, and the conference was around something called imitatio, the imitation of Christ. And the speaker was talking about, the various ways that people have tried to imitate Christ through the centuries. And one young man raised his hand and he said, I'm not really interested in imitation. And, kind of the place went quiet, because that was not the right thing to say at that moment, everybody thought. He said, I'm not interested in imitating Jesus. He said, what I want to feel what Jesus felt. I want to see what Jesus saw. I want to respond the way Jesus did, not because Jesus did it, but because it's what I want to do. And I thought to myself, that was the best description of holy desire that I'd ever encountered. The mystics talk about holy desires, and that's, I think, where we want our people to be, don't we? We want people, in some ways, taking on the mind of Christ, to walk in the footsteps of Jesus, not because they're doing it to kind of an exercise in religious backflips, but because it's what they want to do, that they have been made holy because they've had an opportunity that they hadn't had before. So Just Faith was birthed at a parish in Louisville, Kentucky. It had extraordinary impact on the people who went through it. And then a few years after that, Catholic Charities USA caught wind of the stories. And to make a very, very, very long story much, much shorter, Catholic Charities USA became the official sponsor of Just Faith around the country. And for several years, we grew and grew. In fact, we had meteoric growth, and quite frankly, it wasn't surprising why. We were every diocesan director's best friend. The directors of peace and justice, or social mission, or social action, or whatever the local office was called in that particular diocese, what they were looking for was constituents. They were looking for people to get engaged in the work that they were trying to prioritize. And Just Faith Ministries, Just Faith program was their best friend, because we were in some ways forming people who got involved. And not too long after those few years with Catholic Charities, Catholic Campaign for Human Development and Catholic Relief Services also became partners with Just Faith Ministries. The reason was all of them saw significant impact by new people coming into their work out of the Just Faith program. And so our programs very, very deliberately, and I hope well, represented the work of Catholic Charities, Catholic Relief Services, Catholic Campaign for Human Development. And because people became familiar with them, they got engaged. and they got engaged and they found something life-giving in the work, and they became donors, they became animators, they became advocates, they became, in some cases, staff members. And so it's been a happy relationship. After those, the three, if you will, the three biggies, right, joined forces with JustFaith Ministries, we also enjoyed over the years partnerships with Pax Christi International, Pax Christi USA, Maryknoll, and then on an ecumenical level, Bread for the World and others. And I think the reason that we've had such a robust partnership life is because we're a happy organization to connect to. So I often tell people, JustFaith does not feed the hungry, we don't clothe the naked, we don't visit the sick. What we do is inspire people to want to do those things and to find places where that work is done well. And of course, that's been a happy marriage for us over the years with the partners that we've had. So again, it's my pleasure to welcome you today. I hope that gives you a little bit of sense of the history of JustFaith, and I'll kick it over to, I think it's Susie.
Well, good to be with everybody. Again, good day wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Susie Tierney. I'm the director of JustFaith Ministries, and I'm just going to share a little bit, a brief overview of our JustFaith Catholic series and our Good News People series. Before I do that, though, and maybe we can wait on the slide presentation for just a second, Leila. Before I do that, I want to share a note about how it was formed. And what the most recent version of our programs, how they kind of came together. One of the things that's really important to me, and Jack alluded to in our history, people ask me, how many participants do you, will often ask me how many participants go through a program and you feel like you're really successful. And my answer is, that's not how we measure things. We measure things by the impact on the ground, right? So for us, that means partnerships and collaborations where we can hand folks over to people actually engaged in the work. And so for our Catholic-based programs, when I came on as the director in 2018, one of the first things I did was reach out to Catholic Relief Services, Catholic Campaign for Human Development, and Catholic Charities USA, because those are, at least with our Catholic programming, those are the folks that are on the ground doing the work. And we wanted to make sure that we were providing a place for our folks to go when they do our Catholic programs, to live into that mission, as Jack talks about. So we have just a lovely collaboration with those three organizations. With in fact, Jill Rao at the Justice, Peace, Human Development Office of the U.S. Bishops was just instrumental in our most recent, in providing feedback and input on our most recent version of our JustFaith Catholic program. We have Bill O'Keefe is going to be on a webinar with us tonight from CRS, talking and giving an update about Ukraine. So a side commercial right there, 7 o'clock tonight. There's still time to register for that. And of course, we're developing the fourth program in what we're now calling our JustFaith Catholic series, that a CRS is directly partnering with us on, related to global poverty. So I just wanted to frame that and just share that we have a lovely collaboration with those three organizations, and it's serving us well right now, and we hope serving them well in terms of living out their missions as well. So with that, Leila, if you could flip up the slideshow. She's our tech person, and we love her for that. I'm going to breeze through this because most of what I'm going to share right now in terms of what our programs looks like, you can find on the website. So I'm going to go very quickly through it and just share a few highlights. In what we're calling, most of you, or some of you may remember that JustFaith Catholic was a 24-week program. The most important thing that you should know right now is that we basically divided it up into 3 8-week programs instead of a 24-week program. The method to the madness was very simple. It just got harder and harder for folks like you to get people to commit to a 24-week program. And so we thought if we could just get people into one program, that the chances of them wanting to move on would be pretty high. And so far, we found that to be successful. So there are 3 programs in the JustFaith Just Faith Catholic series. The first is Faith and Poverty, a Biblical Response. The second is Faith and Poverty, a Solidarity Response. The third is Faith and Poverty, a Justice Response. And then Tricia will tell you a little bit more about the fourth. She is our primary author on that program. So the goals of the program, Faith and Poverty, the first program in this series is really the Catholic social teaching grounding. So it's grounding the group in Catholic social teaching and the biblical understanding of the word justice, what it means for our lives and communities. But also, a look at ourselves and who we are as people of God doing this work. And of course, some postures that we need to assume in order to alleviate poverty, and seeking ways to honor God ourselves, but also those who we are intending to serve, that we have postures that we do that in a way that is respectful of all three of those, God, ourselves, and the folks we serve. So move on. The session titles in this first program in this series, you can get a sense of what's the content of the program is right here. Holy conversation versus debate, compassion versus tolerance, wonder versus judgment, equity versus equality versus social justice, working for versus working with. So you get the sense of what these postures are that we talk about as a goal of the program, and how we're called as people of faith to respond to folks who are experiencing poverty or marginalization or injustice. And so that gives you a really good snapshot of what's in the program. We lean heavy into dialogue. That's one of our staples in all of our programs. And so you'll find this holy conversation theme just abundant in all our programs. The goals of the first program in the series to learn about the experiences of people in poverty, to have a better understanding of the dynamics that make it difficult for people to move out of poverty. I experienced those dynamics firsthand as a former direct service provider for Catholic charities. It is often extraordinarily difficult for people to move out of poverty. And so this program explores that. And then to discern your own personal and social actions related to addressing poverty, in particular your local community. And then we get bigger as we go along. In the second program in the series, this is about, you can see from the topics and the titles here, dignity of work and the rights of workers, the cost to live, the social safety net, poverty and health, trauma and addiction, housing, grassroots organizing. So this is where you're getting at some of those things that keep people from being able to, dynamics that make it very difficult for people to move out of poverty, and what that looks like if we line that up with Catholic social teaching and how we're called as people of faith, people of Christian faith in particular. So the goals of the third program in this series, this is appropriately titled Faith and Poverty, a Justice Response, because this program is all about the systemic pieces that make it difficult for people to rise out of poverty again. And it gets at some of those bigger systemic issues. The study of techniques and teachings from some spiritual leaders like Pope Francis, of course, Martin Luther King Jr., Brian Stevenson with the Equal Justice Initiative. And then again, to discern personal and social action to work for systemic change. So there's people will ask if you need to do them in order. We certainly, it would be a recommendation. We had a logic when we put them together of ours that you would do them in order, with the exception of maybe the global poverty program that Tricia will talk about. That one might be able to be done, out of order, but at least the first three, there is a logical progression. And so if that question was on your mind, I hope that answers it. In the third program, some of the session topics and titles, what you're going to see here is a word that I like, that I'm using more and more lately, and it's intersectionality. So not just poverty, but how is poverty and systemic racism related? Not just poverty, but how is poverty and immigration related? How is poverty and the wealth gap related, and the environment? And then leaning into the Catholic social teaching theme of preferential option for the poor to frame this whole program. Resources, these are the books. One of our claim to fames is the books that we use in our program. It is probably the most difficult thing to land on for us as a staff. And it will sometimes take us days and weeks to land on just the right books that we want to get across just the right message that integrates both faith and the issues that we're addressing. So these are the books that if you were to do all three of those programs in the series, you would read The Joy of the Gospel by Pope Francis. You would also read Poverty, Responding Like Jesus. You would read Evicted, about it tracks homeless families or families who are unsheltered in that book. Beyond Empowerment, that's a book of CCHD that's used. It lifts up local community organizing groups. Just Mercy, Brian Stevenson. Many of you are familiar with the film that came out a few years ago, but the work of restorative justice, particularly around mass incarceration. And then our very own Jack Jezreel's book, A New Way to Be Church. He only slipped me, like $10 to put that book in the program, but no, Jack, if you've not read Jack's book, it's just lovely. He did just a brilliant job in capturing what parasocial ministry could look like if it's done well. So that's, of course, incorporated in the program. And then there's a spiritual practice booklet that's designed around the themes of Catholic social teaching. That's been my historic areas of expertise. And so that spiritual practice book just has some stories that animate Catholic social teaching and have reflective questions in them around that. So every session or every program, all three of the programs in the series, they have 8 sessions. There is a guest speaker opportunity, of course. This would be a great time to bring in your local CCHD rep or your CRS rep or something like that. There's retreats and immersion experiences. These are small group programs. So they're designed for small groups of, 8 to 12, 8 to 14, or maybe 7 to 12. So Lila can put the right numbers in the chat, what we recommend. We recommend just a little bit smaller number of folks for virtual groups. And it's all about how people fit on the screen, which leads me to the next bullet. We do have both virtual and in-person formats. So our programs can be done either entirely online or entirely in person, or you could do a hybrid if you have that capability. All sessions in our programs are 2-hour long. There are weekly reading assignments, and primarily those assignments are reading in one of those books that I highlighted earlier, or it could be watching a video prior to the session. Currently, our registration fee is $250 for the program itself, and then the cost of the books per participant. If you do all three of those programs, the cost of the books is going to come out to about $75. We do have a discount when you purchase all three programs at once, and that discount I think is $600. Is that right?
I believe it's $75 discount when you purchase all three at the same time. Mm-hmm.
You can tell I'm out of practice. Lily communicates mostly with our facilitators now. So who am I? I'm just the director. I don't know what's going on. so anyway, there are discounts if you buy all three programs up front. Just one asterisk I want to put there. We will be changing our pricing system. Sometime this year. We are in the process of developing a new website, and so just to be aware, it's going to be more individual centric. And historically, Catholic parishes and Christian churches have done a lot of times. They've paid the one-time registration fee and invited participants to buy books. You might be able to do the opposite in our new pricing system, but we leave how you work out the pricing at this point up to you on your end. The one thing that I would say is I always encourage you to invite participants to pay something because we value our programs. They are valuable. And so we don't want people not to value them as well. And I'm sure most of you know that work in churches that if people actually have put a little bit of money, even if it's $10 towards something, they're much more apt to commit to the process as well. Lastly, I just want to say a few words about Good News People before I turn it over to Tricia, who will talk about our newest program in the Just Faith Catholic series. And that's that Good News People is the best way I can describe it is it's sort of a social justice or social mission version of Renew. For those of you that have some history with the Renew program or did the small groups in your churches, this is the Good News People version, which is really exploring our call to discipleship and engaging with the needs in our community. So that's what Good News People is. The goals of the Good News People program: enliven the faith and engagement of your parishioners, to respond to the call to be a vibrant parish with a deepening and widening community of relationships beyond your parish itself, developing relationships with people who are marginalized or people who are experiencing poverty or injustice, to expand the range of activities within and beyond the parish, and then to unleash the power and possibilities found in faith-filled commitment, to be the good news to the poor. And of course, this is the Isaiah, the reading of the Isaiah scroll that Jesus does. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because the Spirit has called me to be good news to the poor, to set the captives free, recovery of sight to the blind. You get the idea. But that's where the foundation of this program is being good news. The unique components of the Good News People program: there's a kickoff event, Good News Gala, that's a part of the program. Again, an immersion experience. That's something that's a part of every one of our programs. And then resources for the Good News People program itself. There's a facilitator binder, and it's $25. A participant binder is $15. And you just order them. There's no group registration fee. You can order as many as you need or want. There are bulk discounts, of course, if you have multiple groups. This program was originally designed to be a whole parish transformation tool. So, the ideal is to have multiple groups, multiple small groups, but you certainly can do it with just one or two groups as well. There are 14 two-hour sessions, and they are broken into 2 seasons, is what we call it, of 7 sessions each. They are, the program is designed for, as I said, multiple parish groups. And each session includes prayer, Lectio Divina, dialogue, and sharing of good news stories. So the program is packed with just ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. And that was a very, very quick overview of those programs. As I said, there wasn't anything there that you couldn't find on the website, but sometimes if you're like me, you need to hear it and then you know what questions to ask later. So with that, and there will be a time for questions later, but I'm gonna boot it over to Tricia Hoyt, who's probably laughing at me for butchering the scripture. But anyway, Tricia, our biblical scholar and the developer of our 4th program in the Just Faith Catholic series. So Tricia.
Thanks so much, Susie. Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be able to share with you a little bit about the developing global poverty program. You'll notice that when Susie talked about the 3 Catholic poverty programs, what you'll notice when you go through them is they really deal with domestic poverty. And therefore, the exclusive domain of this particular 4th program is global poverty. The aim of the program, the goals of the program are multiple. First of all, we really want to help people understand the complexity of global poverty. If you ask many people about global poverty, they associate it with hunger, and they usually can't go beyond that. And it's, of course, as we know, much more complex than that. So we take a look at the complexity of global poverty, at how it is affected by and how it affects violence, how it is affected by matters to do with the environment. So many different issues, and we found a way just to be able to encapsulate those. And we use the device, if you like, of the Sustainable Development Goals as a start. However, the second goal is to make sure that we take the Catholic approach to this. And the Catholic approach to this really takes advantage of Pope Francis's concerns outlined, of course, in Laudato Si, in Querida Amazonia, and in a more recent book that he put together with Austin Ivory, Let Us Dream, his concern for a complete sustainable ecology, he calls it. So to take a look at the existence of global poverty, expanding our lens so that we understand the oneness that we have with the earth. And while I pause there for a moment just to mention, this book is going to be marvelous as a help. It's by, it's very, sorry, that's not the first book. This is the first book. The Earth Cries Out. It's by Gary Gardner. It's specifically written for Catholics. The subtitle, The Earth Cries Out, How Faith Communities Meet the Challenges of Sustainability. And so he really takes on Pope Francis's view of an ecological conversion that we need. And so he really puts a marvelous framework around the issue of global poverty. One of the other aspects of poverty, of course, has to do with the experience of violence and how violence begets poverty and poverty begets violence. And this book, Brave Souls by Belinda Baumann, is the other major book that they will read. Brave Souls, Experiencing the Audacious Power of Empathy. And that book does two things. On the one hand, it exposes us to the rather horrific experiences of women who have, primarily women, who have experienced violence, but better than experience, it's the fact that they have overcome with an extraordinary spirit that has moved them to become transformative people themselves. And the writer acknowledges that she was a little bit distanced from global poverty, a kind of what in Ireland we'd call the yeah, I get it. And she said, and she wrote this book as a way of us developing within ourselves the real commitment to put our feet on the ground and do something. She calls it developing empathy. Pope Francis has other names for it. So the goal is, one of the major goals is for us to help people really move from awareness to the analytical, the judgment, the see, judge, act, really, and then really step forward and come forward. And to that end, I'm really hoping that we see lots and lots of feet on the ground within the United States for people to support the work of Catholic Relief Services, because Catholic Relief Services stories pop out all over this whole program. And the idea is to slowly help people understand exactly how that is a faith response to the whole world of global poverty. One last thing that I would like to mention is there's we go deeper, kind of about the 4th or 5th week into the systemic causes underlying poverty, especially the legacy of colonialism. So there's a really important deep dive into that and how our structures today still echo and reproduce those very structures that are in fact the legacy of colonialism. I won't go into the structure because I'm really making sure that it's modeled on the previous structures with the same elements that Susie talked about in the first 3 programs. He'll have the spiritual practice booklet as well to be using throughout the weeks in between each session. I'm hoping that I covered most of it, Susie.
Great, thank you. And like Susie said, we will have plenty of time for questions. So if you have a question, hold on to that for a moment. I am Leela Oakley. I'm the Outreach and Engagement Manager at JustFaith Ministries, and it's good to be with you all. There's a huge thunderstorm happening outside, so I'm hoping these headphones help, but I apologize if the rain coming down is a little bit distracting. I want to talk to you a little bit about next steps, and then I'll open us up for some questions. If you are interested in the JustFaith Catholic program or the Good News People program, and you're wondering, how do I bring this to my parish, to my community, to my team of employees? The first step is to register. I guess maybe the step before that would be to give me a call if you want to discern the best program for your community. I'm happy to talk through in more detail about the program content and discuss the needs of your community to find the best fit. But once you've decided on a program, the next best step is to register for that program or to order the facilitator binders if you're interested in the Good News People program. That allows you to get familiar with the material and to begin the planning process. You'll want to decide your gathering format. So whether you're meeting as a small group in person or whether you're meeting virtually. When you're meeting virtually, it does allow you to invite a larger group of people, not in the sense of numbers, but geographically speaking. So if you live in a community where your parishioners or your team is spread out, that might be a great option for you to use. Once you've identified your program, your meeting format, you'll want to consider who's going to facilitate the program. For every small group, we like to have 2 co-facilitators. And these are individuals from your community who have agreed to take on the role of facilitator to lead the small group throughout the process. We have a lot of training material available for facilitators. So those people, you do not have to be an expert in the topic or even an expert facilitator, but really be willing to learn and to grow and to be prepared and engaged with your small group. In addition to written materials and videos, we also hold live trainings. So we have those on a bi-monthly basis, and those can also be hosted on demand. So if you had 6 small groups doing Good News People, I could lead a training for the 12 facilitators at a time that works best for your community. So feel free to ask about that. Then you'll want to set the date for the small group and begin the promotion process. For each of our programs, we have promotion materials available to you. So content that you can put into bulletins, into emails, on social media, so that you can invite your whole community to take part in the journey with you. And those are available when you register for a program, or you can also get access to those before you register. We have a few exciting announcements. The first is that we, for a limited time, are going to be able to give away to you all free Good News People facilitator binders. And that's just 1 copy per person. And the reason we're doing this is we want to give you access to that material so you can make a thoughtful decision of whether it's a good fit for your community, to actually review the content and get your hands on it, get you and a few people in your community to review it to see if it's a good fit. We will not be able to offer free shipping. So what you'll do if you're interested in taking advantage of that opportunity is go to our website, add the facilitator binder to your cart, enter the coupon code, which is on the screen, but will also be included in the follow-up email. And then the only thing you'll be required to pay for is the shipping fee. Just like we want to give you access to the Good News People program, we also want to give you access to the JustFaith Catholic program, and specifically the first program in the series, Faith and Poverty, a Biblical Response. And the best way we've thought to do that is to host a small group through our office that is opened up to you all and other faith leaders. And so the small group will begin on May 2nd, and it will meet weekly from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll work through that program. Susie Tierney, our executive director, will be facilitating the small group, And what this will do is give you an opportunity to engage in the program material if you're interested. So you can decide again if this program is a good fit for your community, and be informed as you make that decision. I'll include a registration link for that small group in the follow-up email. So if you're interested in taking advantage of that opportunity, go ahead and register for the small group. It will be first come, first serve. So that email will go out tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern time. So you can mark your calendars to receive that and register, or get a binder from our website tomorrow. So with that being said, we're going to open up for questions, and I'm going to stop the screen share. And we'd love to hear what questions you have about either of these program series or about JustFaith in general. So to answer your questions, what I'd ask is if you would send your questions to me through the chat, which is on your toolbar. If you just click the chat, select Leela, and send me over the questions, I'll moderate those questions and toss them to Susie and Tricia as appropriate.
While you're booting up your questions, I did get one through the chat, and so just want to say a couple of things. We're sharing about our JustFaith Catholic programs. We have a plethora of other programs on topical issues. We have an eco justice series, a racial justice series, a program on hunger, a program on nonviolence, advocacy, and immigration. And then our newest program is on civil dialogue. And those are all available as well. They're Christian-based, but they're designed for the broader Christian community. So for Catholic parishes, I always say Catholic social teaching is not implicit like it is in our Catholic programs. Not explicit like it is in our Catholic programs. It's implicit. But if you want explicit Catholic social teaching with any of those others, you would need to supplement with some specifically Catholic documents. And then the second thing that I would that I was thinking as Leela was talking about that group opportunity is, in particular, if you're new to us and you've never done one of our programs, I always love to tell people, don't take my word for it or Leela's or Trisha's, try it on, and that's what that group will be. Or if you haven't connected with us in years and you want to see what the newest iteration of JustFaith looks like, because it is vastly different than if you did it, 15 years ago. So anyway, still the same outcomes, still the same, what we call secret sauce components, but it's really a different program. The question that I got, and I want to start with, is somebody asked about, our programs being parish-based versus, multi-parish groups. And so it's a really good question because I want to address that. Always for us and for me, there's the ideal, and then there's your realities. So sometimes the ideal does not match up to your reality, right? So if you asked us, is the best thing to do this within your own parish and to get multiple groups in your own parish, my answer is going to be absolutely. As Jack shared in his history, they're designed to be, church-based programs that move people to action all together. But our world isn't nice and clean like that sometimes, and particularly with COVID. I think of parishes in the rural area that have difficulty pulling together groups, smaller church clusters. All of those dynamics mean that the virtual version or, clusters in person may be the way for you to go. And we've had a lot of success with both models. So feel free to do either. They are designed to do that. In fact, if I could just share that I just participated in our Sacred Land program. I participated in our own programs and just find them extraordinary. And Trisha's doing an extraordinary job on her a global poverty program. And I was in the group with somebody from Denver, somebody from Louisiana, a couple people from Des Moines, and then somebody from Alabama. So, and we had just a lovely experience. So it can happen that way too if you're part of a Catholic network and you want to do it amongst yourselves, that's certainly an option as well.
Susie, I've got another question here I'll direct to you. Someone has asked whether these programs, or if one of these programs in particular, would be a good opportunity for graduate theological students.
I would say not Good News People, so you could set that aside. And good news people is more of a, if you want to use more college centric terms, I would say Good News People is more of a 101. So probably not that. Of our Catholic programs, I'd say JustFaith Catholic would probably be the more inspiring to graduate level programs. If you want to go, all in with just one of our Christian-based programs, or one of our ecumenical programs, the Racial Justice Series, extraordinarily compelling. I see some thumbs up and hitting a yes. We piloted our Racial Justice Series on staff and accidentally transformed our own staff. So, I mean, right. We didn't go, we were expecting to pilot and give feedback to our director of programs. And in the end, we were all transformed. And so our whole organization is doing an anti-racism organizational change process right now. So that is super compelling series. Tricia, you want to say something about it?
Yeah, I was just listening back on my own experience, and I would say that the JustFaith Catholic program, what it brings to those of us who have had a theological background in the academics is suddenly your heart is in it. The immersion experiences, the stories of people. That's what doesn't often occur in the academic context. That is really transformative. I'm a head trip person. I remember saying, I know this stuff already. And then I encountered people in the JustFaith programs and I was gobsmacked. That's a theological term.
Someone has asked whether there have been groups of young adults or college students who have done our programs, and the answer is yes. And I can speak from my own experience as at the age of 23, I did a small group with only 20 and 30-year-olds, and went through the JustFaith program, and was a really powerful experience for me and very formative as I was journeying into adulthood. What I will say is that both of these series, as well as all of our other adult programming, are designed for adults. So it might be that a very mature high schooler could take part in the JustFaith Catholic series and really find it meaningful and transformative. But for middle schoolers or younger high school students, it's really not the best program option. I will throw out that we have a program series called Youth for Justice that is designed for middle schoolers and high schoolers. So if you're interested in exploring social justice programming for youth, that would be a better route. But again, for young adults or college students, both of these programs are great fits.
The only thing I would add to what Leela just said is some of the feedback that we've gotten from young adults in the past is not the content. The content's been right on the money. It's the expectation of reading, especially if you're a college age student. Like they said, we love the program. We can't read the books. Like we have assignments in 6 other books, so that could be a consideration.
And one thing I'll add to that, and then Susie, I'm going to toss you another question. Is that there are groups who choose to meet every other week for that exact reason. So if you're wanting to attract young adults who are really engaged in their career or might also be in school and working, that pushing the meetings to every other week does allow for a little more time to get through the weekly assignments so that they can show up ready to engage at the gathering. So we encourage groups to meet every week, but if need be, you could extend that by a week. Susie, I've got 2 questions for you. The first is asking if Good News People has been updated in the past few years. Someone said they did it a few years ago and just want to know about that. And then the second question is about immersion experiences. So if you could give just a little more color to what an immersion experience might look like, for example, for the Just Faith Catholic series.
Sure. So first question, Good News People, no, it hasn't been updated. I would say, you might, over the last few years, you might, if you use that program, I would say the content is still very relevant, but you might want to supplement it with a current up-to-date article here and there or something. And that's largely because we did a major printing of it. And so, it's very difficult to update it with our current stock. We want to make sure that those don't go to waste. So that's part of that. As far as the second question was, Leila, about immersions. Yes. So immersions, the ideal is immersion. I think at the end of the day, when we talk about an immersion experience, what our ideal is that there's some relationship built between people who are in our programs and people who are directly affected by the issues that our programs are talking about. So there's a sensitivity there, no doubt about it. For example, an immersion experience might be sitting down with the director of a direct service food pantry or clothing site or something like that, and getting the director's sense of needs and in an ideal world, you can ask, you could call a service provider and ask if they have a client or somebody that's willing to speak to groups. And that is often the case. The tricky part here, though, is not putting people in this awkward place of, everybody looking at, the poor person or whatever. So there is a sensitivity there. I always say to start with the director of the service organizations or outreach group that you're wanting to go to. And oftentimes they can say, this person loves to talk to groups, if you're doing the immigration program, contact Catholic Charities. Most Catholic charities have some program, and in a lot of dioceses, I should say, there's a program related to immigration, and they may say, this family loves talking to people about their experience as a refugee or an immigrant. So, but start with the directors because that avoids some of that trickiness around putting people on the spot.
May I add something, Susie?
Absolutely.
In the Diocese of Phoenix, we found that different parishes were doing the Just Faith Catholic, and they wanted a little bit of help and coordination in the immersion experiences. So we put them together so that the participants in different programs in different parishes also got to know each other. We also had very strong community organizers, organizing groups, and they are very good at helping to train their leaders. And so they were very able to articulate not only how it was that they needed to address issues that were affecting their community, but how they themselves had been empowered into growth. So it's very much the CCHD, those of you who work with CCHD, very much that kind of a principle. Those two things.
That does remind me, Tricia, too, we have suggestions, and they're topic related, of course. For every program we have, we have some recommendations about some immersions that you can try in our different programs. And, if you're doing our Echo Justice series, they're going to be Echo Justice centric suggestions. And it's also a good time just to say in general, that our programs are designed so that somebody with some basic facilitation skills, and they do need to have some basic facilitation skills, that somebody with some basic facilitation skills can pick up our programs and facilitate them, and they don't have to I like to say they don't have to make anything up. everything from the opening prayer of the very first session or the very first retreat all the way to the closing discernment prayer is included in a manual. And it's literally following the manual. But you do need some facilitation skills, and some organization skills wouldn't hurt either, because there's some prep work. So, but they're designed to be facilitated, in your churches.
Someone has asked, they've said that they don't have, they're not in a parish that has any interest in JustFaith programs, but they want to be a part of a group, and if there's a way of getting connected. And I'm really glad you asked this question, because this year we will be launching a new website. And with that new website launch will be an amazing feature that we're really excited about, where you can go onto our website, search for a small group by program, by location, whether it's virtual or in person, and find a small group to participate in. You can also do that in the reverse order. So if you're facilitating a small group and you are doing it virtually, but there's space for 2 more participants, and you've asked everyone you know, and you can't fill the group, you can post that for someone else to join. So that will be a really great tool for those of you who want to plug into an existing small group, or for those of you looking to promote a small group on a local or national level. So be on the lookout for that. That will be, like I said, in this coming year, and there'll be plenty of announcements before we launch through Just News, which is our newsletter. So feel free to subscribe to that so you can get the most up-to-date information on that.
Perhaps I could jump in and just say, for anyone who might be cautious about whether or not the Zoom experience would be beneficial or as beneficial, the last 2 years, every single thing I've done has been Zoom JustFaiths, the racial justice, the engaging spirituality. Imagine contemplative prayer on Zoom, 24 weeks, and it worked. So don't hesitate about that.
Thank you, Tricia. You're exactly right. Susie, I've got one last question for you. Someone says they're currently going through the Faith and Racial Healing Program and would like to know if you have any recommendations on how to bring the racial justice programs to the diocesan clergy.
That's a good question. I would say the first step is, do you have a racial justice commission or a racial justice task force at your diocesan level? Whoever is asking that, because I can tell you one of the results of the higher profile racial justice cases, the murder of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, those 3 high profile cases, one of the results of those cases was a lot of Christian churches and Catholic churches pulling together racial justice commissions or racial justice task force. And so I would say the first thing that I would say is go onto your diocesan website and see if you actually have a task force. If you are in the diocese and you're asking that question, then I would say one of the things that we're absolutely accessible for is information meetings and, trainings. And so, Leela, as you can see, Leela is she's phenomenal about, setting up meetings to be able to, if you wanted to pull some of those leaders together, we'd be happy to get on a Zoom call with them and talk about what's in the program, talk about what's not in the program, talk about sticky points. We can, we're very transparent, and, we're happy to be on those meetings. So please use us for that. We can be available to, do an information meeting, especially if you're trying to get your diocesan leadership engaged. I'm always happy to meet with diocesan leaders, and I know Leela is as well.
Thank you, Susie. And I think that is probably a great place to end our meeting today, which is really with an invitation to reach out if you have more questions, if you need any additional support. We are here to walk alongside you as you discern whether or not our programs are a good fit for your community or your diocese. I will send out that follow-up email tomorrow with a recording of today's presentation, which you can share with anyone who you think might want to listen, a link to register for the small group opportunity, as well as the coupon code for the Good News People binder. And if you need anything else, you can reply back. It'll be sent from my email, so you'll have that saved. It's been great to spend the last hour with you all, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you, everybody, and thanks for your great work.
Thank you.